Now, we both know that shopping for a rug can be challenging. You've either got insanely expensive handcrafted rugs or the mass-produced alternatives that won't hold up. But that's where Revival Rugs comes in. Revival's founders didn't want to spend thousands on a new rug, but they didn't want to settle for less either. Revival is a global company with teams in the U.S. as well as weaving regions in India, Turkey, and Morocco. Revival works with artisans to preserve rug-making traditions and pass on this value to you. Eliminating middlemen allows them to remove steep markups, giving you amazing value at incredible prices. And Revival's popular washable rugs have the look and feel of a real rug, so you don't have to sacrifice style for convenience. And my favorite, which I ordered, is the sweatshirt rug, and I also love the stripe rug. So spruce up your space with Revival Rugs. Visit revivalrugs.com/realitylife and use code KateCasey20 for 20% off your first order. That's revivalrugs.com/realitylife, code KateCasey20. One more time, revivalrugs.com/realitylife with code KateCasey20 to save 20%.
No matter how you travel, it's good to have a plan. Some people plan every minute. No sleep, bus, museum, another museum. While others only plan to take it day by day. When it comes to your finances, a plan is just as important. You can count on Credit Karma to give you the insights you need to understand your options so you can take charge of your financial path and find your way to money. Explore how you can make financial progress with confidence today. Intuit Credit Karma. Karma you can count on.
Welcome back for another episode of Reality Life with Kate Casey. Today's episode is about Gone Girls, the Long Island serial killer on Netflix. The series begins with the night Shannon Gilbert disappeared. Shannon dreamt of being a singer or an actress. The oldest of 4 girls, she finished high school at age 16. After graduating, she worked at a hotel and then at a local restaurant. When she was 20, she became an escort as a way of pursuing her dream. At 2:00 a.m. on May 1st, 2010, she traveled to Oak Beach, Long Island, with her driver Michael Pack to meet Joseph Brewer, an unemployed financial advisor who was separating from his wife and her client. She arrived in a dark SUV at a 2-story wood frame house on Fairway Drive. That evening, she was wearing a blonde wig, a pair of dangly hoop earrings, a brown leather jacket, and jeans. On evenings like this, she would tell her boyfriend she was going out on auditions. She made a frantic call to 911. "There's someone after me. There's someone after me," she said. "These people are plotting to kill me," she told the dispatcher. Still on the 911 call, she fled out of the house, running towards the nearby home of Gus Coletti, a retired insurance fraud investigator and resident of Oak Beach for over 30 years. She banged on the door. She yelled, "Help me." She came inside briefly and then fled and eventually disappeared into the dark. It was 5:21 a.m. Michael Pack says he spent close to an hour driving around Oak Beach, searching for Shannon before giving up and heading back to the city. When she didn't come home, her family immediately filed a missing persons report. They waited, but there was no news. So they drove 140 miles from their home in upstate New York to Oak Beach to look for her. By then, she had been missing for 8 days. They went to all the houses around the area and they put out flyers. They spoke to a dozen witnesses and homeowners in the area trying to piece together a timeline. The disappearance was met with little concern from authorities, who brushed off the case as another missing sex worker. That was until her mother Mary's persistence led to an investigation. The Suffolk County Police searched Joseph Brewer's house, seized his car, questioned him and Michael Pack, and concluded that neither was a suspect. After months of pressure to find Shannon, the Suffolk County Police finally began to search the area where she had last been seen. It was December 11th, just before the first snow of the season. A Suffolk County detective with a cadaver dog was on a training exercise on the side of the road in Gilgo Beach, 3 miles from Brewer's house, when the dog turned up a set of bones. But the bones were not Shannon's. When the police searched again 2 days later, they found 3 more sets of bones. There were 4 bodies, and they had been wrapped in burlap, roughly 500 feet apart from one another, all left exactly the same distance, 50 feet from the edge of Ocean Parkway. Investigators suspected the victims had been strangled. On December 14th, 2010, the Suffolk County Police announced that they were looking for a serial killer. The victims were Maureen Brainerd Barnes, Melissa Barthelemy, Megan Waterman, and Amber Lynn Costello. Maureen was born on June 14, 1982. She was petite, standing at only 4 feet 11 inches. She grew up in Groton, Connecticut, and filled composition books with poetry and song lyrics. She had been a straight A student, but then became a mother at 17. She had 2 children, Nicolette and Dylan, and read to them every night before bed. She worked as a blackjack dealer at Foxwoods, at a ShopRite, and at a gas station. A friend introduced her to escorting through Craigslist, and when she started going into the city on weekends, she told everyone it was for modeling gigs. Before her disappearance, she'd been threatened with eviction by her landlord. Since she was at risk of losing custody of her children, she traveled to New York City on July 9, 2007, where she worked as an escort. Her friend Sarah Carnes said Maureen was hoping to make $3,000 on the day that she disappeared. That way she could temporarily stave off her financial issues. But at some point, she called her sister from Penn Station and asked for a ride from New York City. But since it couldn't be arranged, she decided to take the train back to Connecticut instead. From that point on, her loved ones lost contact with her. But 2 weeks later, Sarah received a call from a blocked number. The unknown caller described the missing woman and claimed to have seen her in Queens, but never called back. Melissa disappeared on July 12, 2009, on her way to a Craigslist appointment. She grew up in Buffalo, New York, had lived for some time in Texas with her father, but then came back to Buffalo to finish high school. She got her license in cosmetology and worked for a time at Supercuts. She moved to the Bronx in 2007. Her dream was to make enough money to open her own salon. Melissa just told her mother she was dancing at a club. Megan disappeared on June 6, 2010. She lived in Maine and was a bubbly mother of a daughter. She was secretive about escorting. She told her family she was a dancer. She was last seen at the Holiday Inn taking a call. Her boyfriend, who her family believed was her John, strangely left her alone. Surveillance footage from that hotel revealed that she was last seen leaving the hotel around 1:15 a.m. Amber was last seen in North Babylon, Long Island, on September 2, 2010. She had struggled most of her adult life with drugs. Her friends remember her as quirky, goofy, and generous, someone who would give you the shirt off her back. On September 2nd, the last night that she was seen alive, she left home without her purse or cell phone in order to meet with a man who promised her a much higher fee than she was accustomed to if she had stayed with him for 24 hours. 7 days after Melissa disappeared, there was a phone call at her mother's home in Buffalo. The caller ID displayed the number of Melissa's missing cell phone. Her sister Amanda picked up, and the voice asked, "Is this Melissa's little sister?" And he made reference to the way that she looked. There were 7 calls in all. He taunted her, asking if she knew what Melissa did for a living and whether she would become an escort too. Police traced some of the calls to Midtown Manhattan and another to Massapequa. In the last call in August of 2009, he told Amanda that he had killed Melissa. Her mother and Amanda worried that the caller knew where they lived, and so they moved. All 4 of the women were found. Were all $200 an hour escorts in their 20s, all but one of them 5 feet tall or shorter, who advertised online on Craigslist or similar websites. And each family had a similar story. A loved one goes missing. The police are skeptical of the disappearance because of their line of work. The investigation is not a priority. And then the case was dropped off precipitously, and that was even if there was one at all. Despite the bodies found on Gilgo Beach, the case languished for more than 12 years. But in 2023, a man suspected of being the Long Island serial killer was finally apprehended. That suspect was Rex Heuermann, an architect who founded the New York City firm RH Consultants and Associates in 1994. He worked in Manhattan, where most of his alleged victims worked as escorts, and lived on Long Island, married with 2 children. The neighborhood kids would avoid his house on Halloween, and those that had any contact with him considered him at times an angry person. His home was oddly dilapidated and always dark. His towering physical description, and even that of his unique car, had actually been given to police years earlier, but they were never investigated until that task force was formed in 2023. Under new leadership in the Suffolk County Police Department, they were re-examining the case. Now, it took that task force less than 6 weeks to find Rex Heuermann, something the previous investigation hadn't done in 12 years. The Suffolk County Police Department and District Attorney's Office meticulously worked with the FBI and the New York State Police, piecing together evidence and collaborated in an extensive investigation that led to Rex Heuermann's arrest. His Chevrolet Avalanche was matched to eyewitness descriptions of a car last seen during or near the crime scenes, and this led authorities to his home in Massapequa Park and his office in Midtown Manhattan. These locations corresponded to key activity zones identified through the investigations into the missing and murdered women. The breakthrough came when Heuermann was observed adding minutes to a burner phone, which aligned with the movements of burner phones used during the crimes. And his DNA was recovered from a discarded piece of pizza crust and matched a single hair found on one of the victims. The bodies had been bound in burlap, solidifying suspicions that he was connected to the murders.
Today, the beverage aisle looks a lot different than it used to. America's beverage companies are working together. We're delivering the options everyone wants. In fact, nearly 60% of beverages Americans buy have zero sugar. You'll find more variety than ever, including more of your favorites, now available with zero sugar. You'll also find more sizes and clear calorie information on the front of every can, bottle, and pack. We know when it comes to finding balance, the more choices, the better.
Here's a tip for growing your business. Get the VentureX business card from Capital One and start earning unlimited double miles on every purchase. That's right. With unlimited double miles, the more your business spends, the more miles you earn. Plus, the VentureX business card has no preset spending limit, so your purchasing power can adapt to meet your business needs. The VentureX business card also includes access to over 1,000 airport lounges. Just imagine where the VentureX business card from Capital One can take your business. Capital One, what's in your wallet? Terms and conditions apply. Find out more at CapitalOne.com/VentureXBusiness.
There are several interviews in the series with women who had frightening experiences with someone who matches the description of Rex Heuermann, who stands 6'4" and 250 pounds. One woman recalled being attacked at a house in Philadelphia, only escaping with the help of a hidden taser. Another recounted a date with a man like Heuermann, who went on and on about the Gilgo Beach murders, and notably in much detail. And now police never had this information, and why is that? It's because the law enforcement officers didn't reach out to the sex workers, and likely the sex workers didn't go to the police because they worried that they would be arrested and not believed. Of the search of his home in 2023, which took many days, investigators turned up quite a lot of evidence. The district attorney said that there was a massive amount of material collected from the cluttered home, including 279 weapons. They dug up his backyard for days using ground-penetrating radar, a backhoe, and a police dog in the search for additional evidence. According to court documents, authorities believe Rex Heuermann meticulously planned to prepare, commit, and get away with murder. The disturbing and detailed manifesto was found on one of Heuermann's 58 hard drives that investigators recovered during their initial search of that property in 2023. Prosecutors said in the document he had planned out his kills by creating a checklist of issues to avoid getting caught, needed supplies, and potential dumping sites. In a 14-month period, over 200 times, he was searching for information about the Gilgo investigation, and they found hundreds of internet searches about pornography related to the dehumanizing of women. He was obsessively looking at the victims, but he was also looking at the victims' siblings, and he was fascinated by other serial killers. Since his arrest in July of 2023, Rex Heuermann has been charged with 7 murders, the Gilgo 4, plus Jessica Taylor, Sandra Costilla, and Valeria Mack. Now authorities are scrutinizing unsolved cases spanning back years, examining whether he may be connected. In the second episode of the series, an unusually corrupt arrangement between Suffolk County's then District Attorney Tom Spoda and its police chief Jimmy Burke is explored. Spoda had initially drawn on a teenage Burke as an informant in an infamous Long Island murder case of a 13-year-old boy named John Pius. And oddly, his cooperation led to the likely false convictions of 2 other teenagers. He was surprisingly appointed by Spota to the head of police in 2011. Burke barred police officers from sharing information with the FBI or other law enforcement agencies, ending initial cooperation on the Gilgo Beach case. And it was later emerged that Burke had subordinates conduct surveillance on his girlfriend or his girlfriend's exes. He solicited sex workers. He'd been alleged to be referring to the Gilgo Beach killings as misdemeanor murders. He engaged in a cover-up over pornography and sex toys that were stolen from his vehicle in 2012, including the police beating of an alleged thief of the items. He was convicted in 2016 for assault and obstructing justice. Just after Burke began his sentence in December of 2016, a 30-year-old woman identified as Leanne came forward at a news conference where she claimed that Burke had paid for sex during a house party in the same area where victim Shannon Gilbert had disappeared. She said she'd seen Burke at a cocaine-fueled party in Oak Beach in June of 2011, where she observed Burke pull a woman by her hair to the ground. An attorney representing the family of Shannon Gilbert said at a news conference that that was the first time Burke had been connected to the area and prostitution. At the time, Burke's attorney responded by saying that the allegations and of his involvement in the Gilgo Beach murders were completely outrageous. Well, he was sentenced to 46 months in federal prison. Spota was convicted of obstruction of justice in a scheme to protect Burke and was sentenced to 5 years. So there are looming questions about the possible involvement of others, those that knew Rex Heuermann and were protected by Spota and Burke, including James Bissett, who was the owner of a Long Island aquarium. He was a significant supplier of burlap sacks in the area, though he was never charged or publicly tied to any of the deaths by authorities. But in 2016, a filmmaker who investigated the Gilgo Beach murders received a cryptic message from a mysterious caller who pinned the killings on Bissett. You have to wonder if that was also Rex Heuermann. Gone Girls, the Long Island serial killer, is a 3-episode documentary series that delves into the lengthy investigation that culminated in a much-awaited arrest. And it also explores the stigma surrounding the victim's line of work, which may have contributed to the inquiry's frustratingly slow pace. The series features interviews with journalists, law enforcement officials, and friends and family of the victims and accused killer. It is directed by Liz Garbus, who directed Lost Girls, a 2020 drama that focused on the mother of one of the Long Island serial killer's possible victims and her search for justice. So again, the question is, why did the investigation take so long? It languished for 12 years. Was it due to corruption? The director, Liz Garbus, has said, I think Suffolk County, under Police Chief Jimmy Burke and District Attorney Tom Spota, was run like a crime syndicate. This is a cautionary tale about how to stop that kind of thing before these kinds of people get in positions of power. As an aside, the Gilgo Beach murder case is moving toward a trial, but Rex Heuermann's attorneys are asking for more time as they challenge something called nuclear DNA testing, which has never been used in a New York court of law. The judge has set what's called a Fry hearing to determine whether the cutting-edge DNA evidence will be admissible in the trial. Nuclear DNA was used to match Heuermann to hairs on belts, tape, and burlap found with the 7 victims he's charged with murdering. His uncontested divorce from his estranged wife is nearly finalized, but she has reserved judgment on his guilt. She has a difficult time throughout the whole process believing the husband that she was married to for 29 years was capable of committing these horrific acts. It is even more concerning that her hair and her daughter's hair were found on some of these victims. So this process is very important to getting closure for her, said her attorney, Robert Macedonio. So in this episode, I will also be adding a short interview with Jonathan Mark, who has actually been involved with this case. You can go to his podcast, Connect with Jonathan Mark. His episode on February 3rd is Inside the FBI, connecting with former FBI agent Richard Frankel, and they talk about the Gilgo case as well. So here's my interview with Jonathan.
Ladies, is everyone trying to fix their health concerns with unproven gummies and tricks? Well, thank goodness, Low Libido has a real clinically proven treatment. Low libido can be so frustrating, but there is a treatment called Addyi, ADDYI. Addyi is the first and only FDA-approved pill proven to boost sexual desire in certain premenopausal women. Isn't that great? a clinically proven option for your low libido that comes from a doctor, not a gas station. Learn more at Addyi.com and take charge of your sexual health with a treatment that's backed by science. Remember, that's Addyi, Addyi.com.
Addyi, or flibanserin, is for premenopausal women with acquired generalized hypoactive sexual desire disorder, HSDD, who have not had problems with low sexual desire in the past, who have low sexual desire no matter the type of sexual activity, the situation, or the sexual partner. The low sexual desire is troubling to them and is not due to a medical or mental health problem, problems in the relationship, or medicine or other drug use. Addyi is not for use in men or to enhance sexual performance. Your risk of severe low blood pressure and fainting is increased if you drink 1 to 2 standard alcoholic drinks close in time to your Addyi dose. Wait at least 2 hours after drinking before taking Addyi at bedtime. Your risk of severe low blood pressure and fainting is also increased if you take certain prescriptions, over-the-counter or herbal medications, or have liver problems. Low blood pressure and fainting can happen when you take Addyi, even if you don't drink alcohol or take other medicines. Do not take if you are allergic to any of the ingredients in Addyi. Allergic reactions may include hives, itching, or trouble breathing. Sleepiness, sometimes serious, can occur. Common side effects include dizziness, nausea, tiredness, difficulty falling asleep or staying asleep, and dry mouth. See full PI and medication guide, including boxed warning, at Addyi.com/PI or call 844-PINK-PILL. Addyi.
That's Addyi, Addyi.com.
Hey everybody, we have some exciting news that we want to share. If you want to go on an adventure with Generation Y, we'd love for you to join us. January 26th through the 30th, 2026, we'll be sailing from Miami to the Bahamas on Wondery's first ever true crime cruise aboard the Norwegian Joy. Aaron and I will be there to chat, hang out, dive into all things true crime, and we're thrilled to be joined by some familiar voices in the true crime podcasting world. Surti and Hannah from Red Handed, Sashi and Sarah from Scamfluencers, and Carl Miller from Kill List. Super excited to hang out with them too. We got some cool activities, interactive mysteries we can solve, testing our forensic skills with a blood spatter expert, and so much more. So for some sun, fun, and just the right amount of mystery solving, come join us.
Ready to jump on this seriously epic adventure? Book your cabin right now at exhibitccruise.com.
Jonathan, this story actually takes place exactly where you live. How far is Gilgo from you? How far is Massapequa from where you grew up?
Okay, so Gilgo is 15 minutes from where I currently live right now and where I grew up. I go there every summer, play beach volleyball at Gilgo Beach, and I surf there all the time. And Massapequa was about 30 to 40 minutes in the other direction. And my grandfather lived in Massapequa growing up, which is actually what I wanted to tell you is there's pictures of me as a kid where I'm, shoveling like leaves or putting leaves in like a pile or like how kids used to jump in, whatever. And in the background of the picture with my brother, myself, my dad, my grandfather, there's this red, disgusting house, like 3 houses down, like on in the picture. We find out that that's Rex Heuermann's house. It was his father's house, and then Rex bought it from his father. So I have a connection from this case in so many different directions.
Yeah, the crazy thing is he buys the house from his father, and his cousins have said that it's almost like a time capsule. He had an abusive father, and he's living in the home where he was abused and hasn't changed it. I mean, things are dilapidated, they're falling apart. But he, despite the fact he has this career as an architect, is living in this house that's falling apart.
It was like absolutely disgusting. It smelled horrible. There was things everywhere. But the interesting part was when you went down to the basement where everyone knows about the guns and the meat locker and all this additional information, that was pristine, like clean. Like it was up to date, pristine, clean. But if you go to like the normal living quarters where we would call like a living room, a dining room, the kitchen, whatever, it was disgusting and like super outdated, like very outdated. And it's interesting because, when you see him, like a lot of people I know have videos of him like on the LIRR, like sitting near him. And they're like, who's this big guy? Because he's huge. He's not like a normal size. Like he's huge. And he has his, weird like head of hair. Like it kind of comes across like a toupee or whatever. Yeah. But he would sit down with people on the LIRR where there's this like 6-seater where it would face each other. So there was a 3-seater and a 3-seater, and it would face each other. And there would be girls sitting there, and he would just walk and sit and just drink with them. Like, didn't know them at all. And these videos have been passed along from like friend group to friend group because everyone's like, holy crap, like this is the guy. Like this is him.
At what point were you called by authorities to help in this case?
So when I first started working with law enforcement with cases back in 2017, I was doing cases with the NYPD, and it was being kind of spoken around through different like local departments like Suffolk County, Nassau County, and then the Bureau, like the FBI. And I actually read an FBI agent's wife who was on the case. And I guess the conversation kind of went back to their home, and they were talking, and they were like, talking about Gilgo. And then she was like, you don't really have any leads anymore or really anything at all. They're like, why don't you just give this kid a chance? Like, you heard from this person, from different departments. Like, why don't you give him a chance? And as most law enforcement, their first instinct is probably like, absolutely not, hell no. Like, that's not what they kind of like seek out to do. But I guess his wife, the FBI agent's wife, and hearing it from other people, he calls me on a random night. I mean, I'm telling you, he got my number. I'm sitting at dinner with my parents. I will like literally never forget this. And my parents won't forget this either. We're eating pizza and a random number calls me, and I don't really answer random numbers. I don't know if you do, but like when I see a random number, I'm like, let it go to voicemail and I'll see who it is. But for some reason, I like picked it up and he goes, hi, this is agent blah, blah, blah. I'm working on the Long Island serial killer case, the Gilgo case. You were recommended blah, blah, blah. You have 10 minutes here. Let me see what you got. Like literally, I'm eating dinner mid-bite of a pizza. And I give him a 10-minute like reading on what I saw. And there was a lot of things that were brought up because I kept bringing up there's an unusual R sounding name, not like a Ryan or Robert, like an unusual R name. And all I hear from him, he laughs and he goes, we'll be in contact soon, and hangs up the phone. Like literally all happened like 10 to 15 minutes, right? So I'm like, what just happened? I walk back out and I tell my parents, blah, blah, blah. And everyone's like, what the heck? A year or so, like kind of, passes. But like within that time, I'm getting calls from this agent, like randomly, like nothing was consistent. But then it got to a point after a year or so where he calls me and he's like, I'm retired. The case has been closed. Like, there's no forward movement. Like, I really thank you for everything. And we have everything kind of condensed in like a USB drive because it was all done virtually when I was doing these readings and stuff. And he's like, anytime there's a new task force that comes on, I'm passing you along to them. So like a year passes and all of a sudden Ray Tierney comes in. The Suffolk County Police, district attorney comes in, and then he rips that case open. I mean, like, he's like, screw this, like, we're going and we're going to solve this. And then all that stuff that I did years prior with the first like task force with the FBI, they passed it to him and he was using it. Then he would call me and use it and call me and use it. And then all of a sudden I get a text message at like 3 a.m. in the morning. We got him. That's all I got. He goes, we got him. And I'm like, got who? And they're like, great day for our task force is what I got. It's kind of crazy.
Now, at one point, you were asked to actually meet with Rex Heuermann. Tell everybody about that.
Yeah, so there was a point where they needed, like additional information about like things that could potentially be more than what I think the public knows as far as like the 6 bodies. Mm-hmm. And when I didn't meet him where I was sitting in the same like face to face with him, like they wanted to protect me and protect everyone that's involved. But I spoke to him and had to do some things with him where it was done virtually. And it was very unsettling. It was very, very unsettling.
What was the feeling that you got from him?
Like emptiness. Like, I don't even know how to explain it. Like, it was like he could like care less. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, devoid of emotion.
Yeah, it's like it was all like not a game, but it's like similar to Brian Koberger, right? Everyone always says like he's a very intelligent like man, I guess. Like he's no different, Rex. Like Rex is no different. The only difference is that Rex was able to get away with it for a very, very long time. People always say, don't bring your work home, right? Like people always like, try to separate it. I couldn't. Like, I just couldn't. Like, I came back and I was like, I need a drink. I'm like, this guy's like in my head. Like, I don't know how to explain it. It was just emptiness.
Do you think corruption has been the reason that this case languished for so many years?
Yeah, I think it has a large piece to do with it. I think, there were certain people in power in that area and they were all pretty friendly and they were all partaking in certain events that were, pretty disgusting, I will say. And I do think it's fairly public at this time where like people know about the old commissioner and the old chief that were very, they're both arrested. They both, and I do think there is a large piece of it just because maybe they didn't partake in the actual murder, right? Maybe they had nothing to do with it, but they knew what was going on. So they're complicit to some extent because they knew exactly what was going on. Maybe not to the full extent, but they knew something weird was up. And which kind of goes to like another piece, which I don't think people like really know about or focusing on. There's this guy, his name is Jimmy Bissett. He owns the Long Island Aquarium which is, all the way out in Riverhead, which is by the Hamptons. It's all the way out east, just so people can have like an idea. And he was very close with Rex, and he was close with all these people that were involved in things.
And a major supplier of burlap, which is the material in which the bodies were wrapped.
Correct. And the day Rex got caught, he took his own life. And then a week later, his like executive assistant took his own life. And it just leads you to believe that there was a larger group of people in so many different ways that maybe didn't know exactly what was going on, maybe per se, but had a very strong like indication of like, there's something not right here. Like there's something off here. So,
but then decided to protect.
It's kind of like turn the cheek. It's like, people always say like ignorance is like bliss at times. It's kind of like they probably just put their head down and was like, I'm not looking, I don't hear, I don't see. So it never happened. Like I didn't see, I didn't hear, I didn't do anything. I do think though, and I mean, Ray Tierney, I just want to give props to this guy. I mean, this guy came in and he ripped open the Suffolk Police Department, which is where the Gilgo Beach is in Suffolk County, Long Island. And he stopped this corruption. He stopped there. I mean, this guy is amazing. So people need to give him his flowers.
Mind-bending, the whole case, and grateful for your time and for you sharing that story.
Oh, of course. Thank you for having me.
Remind everybody where they can listen to your podcast.
So it's on Apple and Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast, and it's called Connect with Jonathan Mark.
And where can they follow you on social media?
You can go to my Instagram or TikTok at Jonathan Mark Medium. I actually had the first task force agent for Gilgo on my show.
Terrific. We'll go back and listen to that. Thank you again.
Thank you.
The amazing Kate Casey.
I want to thank my wonderful guest, Jonathan, and remind you to click subscribe, leave a 5-star review. Please join the Facebook group, Reality Life with Kate Casey. I would love to hear what you think about this case. You can get my What to Watch list at katecasey.substack.com. My bonus episodes are at patreon.com/Kate Casey. And please follow me on social media. I'm on Instagram at KatecaseyCA, TikTok, it's Kate Casey, and Twitter Threads and Blue Sky at Kate Casey. Check back tomorrow for an all-new episode.
Everyone has that friend who seems kind of perfect. For Patty, that friend was Desiree. Until one day,
I texted her and she was not getting the text. So I went to Instagram and she has no Instagram anymore. And Facebook, no Facebook anymore.
Desiree was gone, and there was one person who knew the answer.
I am a spiritual person, a magical person, a witch.
A gorgeous Brazilian influencer called Cat Torres, but who was hiding a secret. From Wondery, based on my smash hit podcast from Brazil, comes a new series, Don't Cross Cat, about a search that led me to a mystery in a Texas suburb.
I'm calling to check on the 2 missing Brazilian girls.
Maybe get some undercover crew there.
The family are freaking out. They are lost.
I'm Chico Felitti. You can listen to Don't Cross Cat on the Wondery app or wherever you get your podcasts.